Thank you for joining us on another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. I'm Tony Carvajal, the Executive Vice President of the Florida Chamber Foundation, and joining me today is John McKernan, former governor of the state of Maine, former congressman, most importantly, the current president of the U.S. Chamber Foundation. Governor, I appreciate you being here, and I wanted to talk about a new study that you've just put out. Let me make sure I get the title right. It's The Growth Imperative. Tell me a little bit about that study and what it says.
Sure, Tony. Thanks for having me on, because this is an important show and it's an important message in terms of our growth imperative. We have a serious problem in this country in that we're not growing at the rate that we need to have the kind of economic opportunity that people all across the country and here in Florida need and deserve. And when you look at what has happened over the last 6 years, we have not had the growth rate in our national economy that we've had historically in this country of 3.3% average annual growth for the last 50 years. But for the last 6, it's been in the 2 to 2.5% level, and that is causing serious problems as we look down the road. 10 years from now, we're going to see that we're not going to have the jobs that we need, we're not going to have the kind of economic activity, we're not going to have the standard of living, and we're not going to have the quality of life that is important to Americans and that we've come to expect.
So we need to improve this for our nation's growth so that we don't become like Greece. Give me a little information about what do we have to do and what do we gain if we actually accomplish that?
Well, the most important thing is to realize that we are not asking for more than just returning to our historical growth levels, and we can do that by making some common sense changes in our policies in Washington, whether it's tax reform, whether it's regulatory reform, whether it is new trade agreements. 95% of our customers are outside the United States for American businesses, so we need to understand we need those trade agreements. We need immigration reform. We need to make sure that we're investing in education and workforce and infrastructure so that we have the appropriate policies that will allow us to take advantage of the opportunity to grow and to create the kind of jobs that we can create, and we can create the kind of economic growth if we have the policies that are going to drive that kind of long-term growth.
Now, you're using language that the Florida business community uses a lot of times, and I have this sense that that we're doing pretty well. But tell me, what's the state of the state of Florida from your perspective? Well,
from our perspective, Florida is doing a lot of good things. We have an Enterprising States report that we put out each year, and in that report, one of the things that we do is we look at how the states are doing in terms of their job creation climate and their business climates. And Florida does very well in the top 10 in an awful lot of the categories, and overall doing very well. So you're making the right investments. And I have to tell you that I'm a great admirer of your Cornerstone report and the 6 pillars, because you are hitting many of those areas that I just mentioned that the federal government needs to look at. So with that, I think we can see a major opportunity for Florida. But the point that I always make when I go to different states is that as well as Florida is doing and the kind of investments that you're making, you're not going to be able to maximize your potential unless we have the federal government make the kind of policy changes that allows the overall economy to grow. When the overall economy grows, states like Florida that are making the major investments that you're making in the right areas are going to be the ones that are going to benefit, and it's the residents of Florida who benefit from that as well.
Well, that's good news, not only for where Florida is positioned for the future, but more importantly, where we can go together. Thank you for taking Florida's message to the rest of the state, and good luck on this growth imperative, because we absolutely have to get this right. And so here from Tallahassee, this is Tony Carvajal with the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. Thank you for joining us again.